Hi folks, it's Ryan Cullen here, Executive Director at the Louisiana Academy of Performing Arts, bringing you some joy and wisdom once again.
Hi, I'm Bethany Lang. I'm our Director of Administration for LAAPA.
We're here today to discuss all things related to music lessons, getting started in music lessons, what to expect if you're just starting to check out local music schools, or especially if you've never done this before and you're wondering, how do I get started in music lessons? What are some important things that I should know before I start even contacting schools? What kinds of things are important when you're trying to find a music instructor for you or your child? And having done this now for 40 plus years, not me personally, but LAAPA has, and I've been doing this for at least 25 years. Bethany, how long have you been doing this?
7 years this year.
7 years, yes. So we are very knowledgeable on this subject, shall we say, and I have 4 children enrolled in music lessons. And they all do different things, and they all have a lot of fun with it. So the first thing, Bethany, that we often get asked is, what ages do you start lessons, right? Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we start as young as 18 months for our preschool music programs, all the way up to adults. Yeah.
Yeah, so really, any age, you can do something here, right? Mm-hmm. As 18 months and up. We have a lot of adult students that, didn't get to take lessons in their youth, and they always wanted to, and now they have the time to put in. So we have a number of adults too. So we have a wide variety of students here.
Even senior and golden age students.
Exactly, yeah. So even if you're on our website, you might not see a lot of adult students there because they don't tend to like to have their picture taken, right? But they're here, and we love them just as much as the children. So if I am, let's say I'm 18 months old to 4 years old, right? What are some things, what do I do? Where do I start with that?
Yeah, so we would start in one of our toddler music sessions, preschool music. So these are broken down into 2 groups. We have preschool music 1, and this is catered for our younger demographic, ages 18 months to 2 years. And then preschool music 2 is for our slightly older kiddos that are going to be 3 to 4 years. Preschool music is essentially kind of developing a love for the arts through instrument exposure. So they get one-on-one time with things like ukulele, guitar, violin, drums, piano as a recurring component. And how the class looks and is structured is, yes, again, hands-on time with key instruments, right? So we might have a focal point instrument each week. The kids will get one-on-one hands-on time, so it'll be passed around. And then, sometimes we have teachers come in for exhibition as well for instruments that they may not be as familiar with. Say the kids have never seen a cello or an upright bass up close. Teachers will come in and play that for the students as well. And there are some recurring instruments and themes each week, right? So, piano, like I mentioned, is something that the class typically integrates. Each week, the kids will get on the keyboard. There's a hello and a goodbye song. So each week, the kids will get a component of, music, movement, literature, storytelling. There's, voice in each class. And for age 18 months to 2 years, parents are in the room, kind of mirroring key concepts for their students. For the older group, kids are alone, and the parents are just outside, being on deck for bathroom breaks and things like that. But the goal of preschool music is to introduce them to an array and variety of instruments so that once the kids hit 5 and are at the age where we can, maybe more effectively get them into private lessons, a lengthened attention span, for example, they know all the different things that we offer, and we have a good handle on what the child might be most interested in.
Yeah, and it's an awesome age, getting started at 18 months or even 1, 2, or 3, because, if you think about it, Bethany, as adults, right, we're scared to try things. And when you're 18 months up to 4 years old, or even older, like 10, 11, you don't really care what other people think, right? So you just try stuff, you experiment, you have fun. Not to say that older kids don't have fun, but it's a really neat time. It's a unique period in life.
There's no fear in those classes for sure. They, bang it out on the drums. We see that, and they are on stage as well. Those classes at the level 2 get to participate in our recitals, so that's always so cute and fun to see. And then special activities for those kids too. Like you mentioned, they are not afraid to put on a show. So usually we have Mardi Gras parades for the preschool music kids, and they, go through the classrooms and go through the hallways and show their stuff around that time of the year. So it's a really great way to get them integrated into music, but also socialized, since sometimes they're that young.
Right.
They don't
and that
get
could be
home.
their first time socializing, or even with a formal instructor, right? Maybe they've never had a formal teacher before. At a certain point, and after preschool music, it's time to graduate. And there are 4 programs here, and probably any school, that are good to move to. And those would be piano, voice and singing, drums, and violin. And all of those programs typically start at age 5, sometimes 4.5 if we do a shorter lesson. It's largely based on attention span, honestly. And so sometimes we'll do a smaller private lesson, like a 15-minute private lesson. But typically all of our private lessons start at 30 minutes a week. So let's first start with piano lessons, because piano lessons is kind of the cornerstone of music education. Okay, when you go to a university and you want to study music, well, you're going to be taking piano lessons. If you were a voice major or a guitar major or whatever your major is, you have to know the piano. And the reason for that is because it's a visual instrument. Okay, there aren't a lot of instruments out there where you can just play a note. I always like to say, if you have Elton John here, or Billy Joel, right? They hit a middle C on the piano. And then we have a preschool music student hit a middle C on the piano, assuming they strike it the same way and the same weight and the same volume. It's going to sound the same.
Little kids really like that too, since there's a sense of maybe instant gratification that isn't always mirrored in other instruments.
Right. Now that oversimplifies it just a little bit. Okay, there's years and years of practice that goes into making it musical.
Oh yeah, to actually read and play.
But at the end of the day, yes, here's a middle C, right? Here's an F. So you can really see the piano, and being able to see the piano helps with things like music theory and studying other areas and instruments in music. So it's very accessible to beginners. You're also studying 2 clefs of music, the treble clef, bass clef. And so maybe later you want to study guitar, that's in the treble clef. Or maybe you want to study the tuba, that's in the bass clef, right? So you already have some knowledge there if you want to go to different instruments. Bethany, other thoughts on the piano?
Yeah, like you said, the theory is very translatable, and I think it's oftentimes our most popular instrument for a number of reasons, but certainly that one as well. It kind of sets you up to delve into other areas, which oftentimes happens. We see a ton of multi-instrumentalists here, so yeah.
Yeah, and I would like to add too that we'll kind of talk about what is needed to get started in some of these programs. So for piano lessons, do you have to buy a piano right away? No, you don't. It's great if you want to, but we did a whole other video on keyboards and what kind of keyboards we recommend to get started with. You don't have to spend a fortune. Acoustic pianos, in my opinion, will always be superior. Okay, that's what we use at the Academy. I still don't think the technology is there to fully replace that kind of experience, so that's why we have them here. And they last forever too. I mean, a good quality piano is going to last you a lifetime if you maintain it. But to get started, you don't have to have one. You can have a really decent keyboard. And then maybe after 6 months to a year, you can graduate up to other instruments. So that's our opinion on that. And a lot of these are our opinion too. So if you don't like our opinion or my opinion, that's okay. You can push the stop button at any time. Great, so that brings us now to, let's talk about drum lessons. I'll let you go first for drum lessons if you like. So age 5 again, we can start on the drum.
Yeah, age 5 for drums, I'd say is very, engaging just because it's a kinesthetic instrument. So there's a lot of mobility that goes into it. It's very physically engaging, and oftentimes kids, I'd say, connect with it because of that. Sometimes we will have, families come to us and say, my child is bouncing off the walls, and I really want to get them started in music, but I'm nervous, in regard to attention span, I'm nervous for them to sit down and devote themselves to something for 30 full minutes. Well, there you go. Drums oftentimes kind of bridges that gap. And it's become really accessible in-home for practice measures as well. We used to get a lot of parents on the phone that would say, I really want to foster my child's love for drums, but maybe I'm nervous about having something that loud in-house for practice habits and things like that. But now there are, plug-in headsets that the kids can use to be able to, build on those skills at home without maybe driving parents up a wall and things like that. So I think it's, a great engaging instrument that has, come a long way, and we see a lot of interest in it, because of some of these reasons.
Right. That's a great point with energy levels, because drums, you use all your limbs, right? And to get started in drums, again, you don't have to go right out and buy a full drum set. A lot of teachers prefer to start with just the snare drum, for example, or even a drum pad. A lot of our teachers will like to warm up with just the drum pad, get some strokes going. So just talk to your teacher about that. If you do a trial lesson or something like that, hey, what do I need to get? What do you recommend? You'll hear different answers. And like Bethany mentioned, also, if you're concerned about noise, which I would be, and one of my children takes drum lessons, and I was concerned about noise. So what I did were the silent heads, or the noise reduction cymbals, and mesh heads is what they're called, that you can put on all of the drums. So you just take the regular ones off, put those on. It's a lot quieter, folks. I do recommend that. Now for shows and stuff, you want the full experience, right? And that's what we do for our shows. So let's talk a little bit too about, we'll talk about this as we go, but also music notation and what to expect with that. Because students come to us for a number of different reasons. And this is just something that you want to chat with your teacher up front about, because different students are concerned about learning different kinds of things, both stylistically and with respect to reading music. Some people don't want to read music at all, right? They want to learn by ear. Fine, if that's what you want, wonderful. I think I would say that more so for adults than children, because when children are growing up, you want to give them all the options, right? If they're very young, 5 years old, 6 years old, we're going to teach them to read music, either on drums or piano or violin, whatever it is. We're going to incorporate that into the lesson, unless you specifically tell us, no, we don't want that. We just want a different approach altogether. We feel that's going to limit it, be limiting down the road, but the top tier musicians, if that's your goal, they don't rehearse together. They've never met before. They just go into the recording studio. The composer puts the music down in front of them. The conductor starts and they play. And it's usually flawless within a couple of takes. So if that's your goal, then you got to read the music, right? So there are different goals here. With children, we feel it's best to give them all of the options. But again, if you're an adult student and you're just trying to have some fun, maybe figuring out a song on the radio, right? We're just learning by ear maybe in that case. And we can do a combination too. It could be some ear, some learning to read music. It just depends. So I wanted to throw that in there. Let's talk about voice lessons, because that's a big one and that's something you're an expert in.
Yeah, so I studied voice in my undergrad years, and I think it is, such an important and powerful instrument because it helps with a million different key things like confidence, like self-discovery, kind of advocacy, and really developing who you are as an artist and who you are as a human. Voice is powerful because you are the instrument, right? So, it's really great to introduce to kids that maybe have had issues with confidence. Maybe they're a little shy and need to break out of their shell. Voice is the instrument for you if that's the case. And we do a good job here at LAAPA integrating it for all ages in that you can start it at 5 and we'll introduce, safe singing topics. You can start it at age 70 if it's something that you have never delved in and want to, take a shot at. So it's really here and accessible for all.
Yeah, great. One of the things that we focus on too is vocal health as well. This is something that if you have a very active singer in your house, maybe they haven't had lessons yet, but they love to sing, they love to talk a lot as well. You want to be careful with that. You definitely should consult a professional because you don't want them to develop vocal nodules, especially if they're louder and they're doing it all the time. If you're noticing some hoarseness or something like that, there's a proper way to sing. There's proper breath support and things that you need to be careful with so that doesn't become an issue, right, Bethany?
Yeah, vocal health and wellness is so important, and teachers are there to help students identify their range too that's safe to sing in and kind of differentiate between am I only belting? Is this a time where I should be, maybe reaching higher into the head voice? And concepts like this, sometimes kids aren't aware of whenever they come in and they have been singing, Adele or Mariah Carey at home. These, are great and popular artists, but a lot of the times their work needs to be adapted. So our teachers, are really good at helping bridge that gap.
And the fourth option we talked about is violin lessons. Violin lessons, Bethany. What do we need to know about that?
So for violin lessons, what I like to tell people on the phone is that it is a great option, and we need to be a little bit cognizant of sizing. So if you have a small child, violins come in a range of sizes.
There's a lot of sizes,
yeah,
right?
Sometimes kids will come to us.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and they've maybe gone to see LPO. They've had an orchestra experience, and they say, I love all of these stringed instruments. I want to get started. How can I do that? So violin is great for the younger kids because we have, integrated instruments that come in small sizes, like a fourth, a half. So be mindful of that. If you're a beginner shopping for a violin, sometimes parents will come in and say, I picked this up. And it's not necessarily something that is fitted to their child. So we can help you guys out with that. We have, a rental fleet here that we use for sizing for kids that are on the younger side. And yes, violin is a great instrument, period. It's also a great instrument to get a child started on if they're maybe interested in eventually branching off to viola or cello, upright bass, but they're on the smaller side. I think, yes, being mindful of sizing whenever you're getting started is something to keep in mind for beginners on violin. And also just being mindful of, the product that you're interested in purchasing.
Yes.
There are some cheaper violins, ukuleles,
do not do
things
a
like that on
Temu
Amazon.
violin.
Yeah. Consult a professional, ask your teacher here or ask us about, brands and vendors that we'd recommend because violin, like guitar, is something that you do need an instrument to start on typically, and it can be an investment, but there are a range. There are ones that are a little bit more cost effective instead of higher end that are going to be, just as useful and great for your child. But again, with that, avoid the very, very low end of the spectrum. Maybe, Amazon violins might not be the way to go.
Right, yeah, and we can help you with that. We do have some on Amazon that we can recommend,
Yes.
But a lot of things on Amazon, just be careful if you're online shopping. And that goes for any instrument. If you're online shopping, and you're trying to get a deal, you just have to be careful with that.
Looking for
So please
reputable
ask. We don't mind sharing our experience because we've had a lot of experience with trying things out. I mean, I'll try things out sometimes. I'm like, that looks like a good deal. But I mean, at this point, I kind of know that's probably not going to work out. But also with violin, as far as pedagogy, something that you want to learn about is the methods that you can expect your teacher to work in with you. So we use the Suzuki method. That's kind of the universal standard children's, I mean even adult method, where it has a basic approach to repertoire. So it's heavily focused on repertoire, not so much learning to read music. So what we do is we kind of supplement that. I mean, it's a great curriculum, but it's more like, okay, here's how you do this, and finger number this, and here's this finger number, and you put it here. Kind of like with guitar where you're learning the frets and tab, they call it.
Yeah, tablature.
Right, so that's cool, and you can learn to play quickly that way, but you need to know what you're doing too, and a lot of violinists get trapped, especially because this is developed for young children. They get trapped later in life. So we don't like to see that. So we do flashcards, and we encourage all of our teachers to do both so that they're ready to go wherever their journeys may take them down the road. And we do fiddling. You could fiddle here.
Yeah.
You could do some bluegrass, a little jazz. Again, styles are pretty open with the violin. So it's up to you.
Yeah, and different teachers will help guide you as well. Through stylistic approaches, we have teachers that are more, equipped and adept to handle fiddling. We have teachers that cater to a more classical approach. If you guys ask us at the desk, we can certainly help you find, the perfect pick for you.
Yes. And I will say too, with beginning violin, you have to have patience with that. Okay, violin is like, where is the note? Is it here? Is it here? Is it back here? Maybe it's up here. And that's why our teachers put some tape on the violin initially. So there's going to be a lot of different kinds of things that you get with your violin. It's not just the violin. There are accessories, right?
Rosin.
You have the rosin. It's the magical dust that makes the bow strike the strings properly, and you get the sound out. And then we have the neck support rest, which honestly, when I was young, we had sponges. Just a regular plain old dishwasher or dish sponge. And that was fine. I'm still okay. But now things are fancier, so.
And teachers will walk you through that as well, proper posture,
Yes.
And the way to hold the violin, because that can create challenges as well if a child learns, inappropriately from the jump and then kind of develops habits based off of that.
Right, absolutely. Let's move on to what can we do when we are 8, maybe 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Bethany, what do you think? Or, actually, we kind of forgot 6, age 6 and 7. We could do ukulele.
Yeah, ukulele is a good precursor to guitar.
Yep.
A lot of kids come to us and they say, I want to learn guitar, which is great, but they might not have the proper arm reach yet.
Or the finger strength,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, kind of building that dexterity. So ukulele is a good, kind of bridge between the two. A lot of what you learn will translate to a guitar. And again, it might not be as frustrating for them in regard to kind of building calluses with, steel.
Right, yeah. I mean, definitely nylon strings are the way
yeah.
to go for beginners for guitar. But they have small guitars too. So if you get a half-size guitar, it kind of depends on the student.
Similar to violin, you can size from, a half, 3/4, and things of the like before moving on to a full, which we typically wouldn't recommend until a child is around 12-ish. Sometimes if they're, a taller child with a larger arm reach.
Depends on the physical size, yep. Right, so, and that brings us to guitar. Guitar, let's face it, is a cool instrument, right? It's very cool. People want to learn the electric guitar, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's the coolest one. because
Rock
you can
and power
have.
chords.
Have you seen some of these pedal boards that the guitarists bring? If you've ever met a guitarist, first they have not one guitar, they have a room full of guitars. Okay, that's number one, and they're all very cool and impressive. Number two, the pedal boards, right? Because they're all kind of pedals everywhere, and you push this one and it makes this sound. And it's I'm a pianist. We don't have that. We just whatever. But anyway, guitar is very cool. Do you have to start with an acoustic guitar and nylon strings? You don't have to. You can start with the electric guitar. Bring your electric guitar in to class, get a little amp at home. That's the one thing you need. You need a little small practice amp if you go that route. So it's some extra stuff to get. But if your child really or you want to do that, fine, you can start with the electric guitar. You'll have the steel strings, so you were talking about calluses.
Building calluses.
You'll build calluses a little faster, but usually we recommend acoustic, nylon strings. It's an easy way to get started on the guitar. And that also brings us to reading music with guitarists.
Yeah, tablature and
what to expect. Yeah, so we teach both. So tablature, your teacher's going to know that. Your teacher's going to be able to show you standard music notation as well. We encourage both, and chords as well, learning about chord symbols, lead sheet notation. These are all important things as guitar players.
That's the first thing that I was introduced to whenever I
Right.
started mine with Christian, the different chords.
Yep.
Yeah, and the different adaptations as well on how to form those. And that's one of the things that I'd say as someone who went through it as an adult, getting comfortable and used to those finger patterns can take
Right.
time, so don't get frustrated
Yes.
on guitar. I have small hands, and I learned quickly that reaching some of those chords and being able to
Yeah, you
hold
gotta
them
stretch.
was a challenge even for me as someone who got started, at almost 30 with previous music experience.
Yes, it can be a physical challenge
Oh, yeah.
there. And if you don't like playing chords on the guitar, but you still like the guitar, you could be a bass player. Right? I play the bass. I enjoy that. And you only have to hit one note at a time, which is wonderful. And there is a general, I don't know if you've heard about this, there's a shortage of bass players. It's always hard to find a good bass player. And I learned a long time ago that without the bass players, my chords on the piano don't work. So it's
Kind of holds everything together.
It holds everything together. You're very important people, bass players. So we love you and we treasure you. And you should learn the bass. And you can learn electric bass, upright bass. Most commonly here we teach electric bass, but we have teachers that if you want to bring your upright in, great, bring your upright in.
Some specialists in that, like Zach.
Right, yep. And that is very physical, the upright bass. So that might not be what you're going for if you're
As a beginner.
trying to not do those big shapes on the guitar. But that's also a wonderful option. And 9 years old, right? I think it's around 8 or 9
9 typically, yes.
that will start bass lessons.
And the teachers will also walk you through instruments because similar to, what we talked about for ukuleles, for violins, there's definitely a range on guitars, and it can be broad. You can see some that are just not effective, that are really, really cheap online. You can see some that are, more cost effective, that are great instruments, and, some that are going to be beginning guitars, some that are more collectible guitars. Whenever I was purchasing my first
There are a
instrument,
lot of
I would
cool guitars.
see just the range that it went up to. So the teachers will tell you, maybe this is a good brand to start with, a good price point to look into, and what to expect and what to avoid.
Right. Especially if it's for a child, you don't want to go crazy.
Yeah.
Because that could be destroyed the next day. but you don't want something that's going to be frustrating. You just want to avoid frustration, really, as a beginner, which a lot of the cheap instruments will just provide you frustration, and the teacher frustration, right? So let's talk about cello lessons. Bethany, what do you think as far as age getting started with cello?
So you can start very young on cello. They do have smaller sizes, kind of similar to what we see for violin and guitar. We have tiny cellos that you could start, as young as 5 or 6. What we most commonly see are students that are, maybe 8 and up on cello, but it is similar as we've talked about with violin in that it's going to be in that same clef. And
it'll be a bass clef, right, for cello.
So a little bit more standard, and it's something that is really awesome. Again, if a student has kind of developed an ear for classical music, if they are really into, going to see the orchestra, for example, this is something that is, an integral point of the string section. And a lot of students that we see that develop that interest go on to study in youth orchestras,
right?
Yeah, and things of the like.
Yeah, it's a wonderful instrument. Let's talk about some of the brass and woodwind now. We've covered pretty much everything except brass and woodwind. So ages for that are similar to some of the other later instruments we've talked about. So ages 8 to 10 are pretty common for that. And the big thing when you get started in one of those instruments, it's all about the embouchure, okay? And you have to be patient. It's not like the piano where I go, bam, middle C, right? No, I remember, Bethany, when I started to play the saxophone years ago, it took me 2 weeks, 2 solid weeks before I could get a decent sound
to focus
out of
on
the
a lot
mouthpiece.
Of buzzing, yes.
There's the buzzing, and you've got reeds, there's wood. You have to put the reed on the very precise way on the mouthpiece. It's got to be lined up just perfectly. You have to learn the buzz, like you said. There's cork grease. You have to grease your cork, put it on. It's a lot of assembly, too. It's like you got to put it all together, right? Some of these instruments. So assembly is required. And then you get your note, right? You get that first note, and then it's very rewarding, right? So I always like to mention that up front to students. Hey, you might get a sound today. And a lot of times students, I was just not that talented at the saxophone, I guess, when I started. And a lot of students will get a sound, because we do camps too, and they'll get a sound the first day of summer camp.
Yeah, they surprise us.
And it's great, yeah. And it's loud. It's like, honk. Great, it's fun. It's a lot of fun. But just be aware of that. That's the main work. Once you have that down and you get a consistent sound and breath control, then from there, it's learning the keys. And in that sense, it is like target practice, because saxophone, you got the keys. Trumpet, you have the valves. Although trumpet, the problem with that is the keys do different things, right? But based on how hard you blow. So if it's based on the overtone series. So if you push more air, you get a higher note. And if you push less air, you get a lower note. Okay, and I hope we're not boring anyone at this point yet, but it's very fascinating how all these things work.
We don't have many, but sometimes whenever we do get trombone students, that's another thing to keep in mind.
Slide positions, yes, right. And you have to have a long enough arm, too, for the trombone. I always wanted to play the trombone, and I never got that chance yet. Maybe I should enroll. Yeah, I'll have to think about that. But you have the 7 slide positions, too, and that last one, you got to be all the way out. So you have to be careful with that. A lot of times what we'll do is work with students from bands at their school and their school programs, because when you join a band at school, the teacher doesn't have time to work with you privately and say, here's how to play the instrument. I mean, they'll do that if you're in a beginning band at school, but a lot of times you're just thrown in the band. You're in the band, right? Now you have to learn how to play the instrument. So a private one-on-one lesson is the best way to accomplish that.
Helps give students, the time and attention to, achieve higher chairs, for example.
Right.
The later they go on into their band careers.
And you can bring in your band music, you know. Bring in your football season music, and we'll help you out with that. So, I believe, have I forgotten any instruments?
Not in brass and winds, but kind of adjacent. I will just say we sometimes get requests from band students for auxiliary percussion.
Yep.
And that's something that we do offer too. Not as common, but if you guys have an interest in that, we have teachers that are equipped, on xylophone and things of the like.
We've had some interesting students. Did you know we once had a whistling student? Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, and I would listen to the teacher every week and the student, and they were whistling Mozart's Alla Turca. Yes.
That's crazy. I have seen Nikolai teach an intro to screaming class where it was a student that specifically wanted that
Scream?
Heavy metal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and we have harmonica also. If you enjoy harmonica, we've had accordion students.
Yeah.
So let's say you want to take classical voice, Bethany, and I want to take jazz guitar. Do we do that?
Yes.
Yeah, can do that. So same for piano. Jazz piano, pop piano, classical piano. There's not really a limit. All of our faculty members come with different specialties and expertise. So we match you up with one of those instructors based on your interests, okay? And if we're talking about a 5-year-old, you might not know their interest yet, and that's okay. I mean, like I said at the beginning, the basics are universal, right, with what you need to know, and they'll sprinkle in some things that are of interest to each student, or maybe the parent, maybe you have a specific song you want them to learn as a parent. So that's fine too.
Our teachers are great at helping them develop that musical ear too and kind of figure out what their interests are. They try to take a really personalized and collaborative approach. So if your child wants them to transpose, video game music from Minecraft and incorporate that into lessons,
we do a lot of video game music here. Yeah. Video game music is popular. Let's talk about private music lessons versus group music lessons. Which are best when you're trying to get started in learning?
Yeah, so getting started, you definitely need the private instruction to know how to effectively perform in a group setting, because once you get into an ensemble, a lot of it is, you're already expected to know musicality, you're already expected to be able to do cursory things like read, sheet music or chords in order to, perform and keep up with other musicians, things like timing, developing the musical ear, a lot of that you cover, in the one-on-one setting. So it'll equip you to go on to do these things, but in order to, form the base foundation, that is accomplished in one-on-one private lessons.
Right, and there are a lot of music programs where you can learn in a group lab situation, like piano lab or something like that, and you're a brand new beginner. But the fact is that everybody progresses at a different speed. So you might get very bored with that, and everybody else, and you're waiting on everybody else in the class. So typically, we recommend the private lessons, and that's what works for most people. Now, we also do small groups here, where if you and a friend who are both at similar levels, and you can progress kind of the same, or a family member or something, and you're both at the same age and skill level, and you're progressing the same, then it works. It's fine to do that.
Semi-private lessons.
Semi-private, we don't have a lot of, we don't do any labs here, though. We've tried, and this is what we feel works best here.
The teachers in one-on-one setting have the capacity to teach more to the student.
Right.
And address, individual learning styles. If your child learns, orally, if your child learns to play more, in a visual setting, I think those things are catered to better.
Let's talk about music lessons at home or in a professional setting, okay? And this goes both ways, both as a student and a teacher. And so I'm going to give you my take on this, which might not be all that popular, but Bethany, I used to go, I don't know if you know this, but I used to go and travel to student houses. I would go to door. I mean, they knew I was coming.
Like a salesman.
They knew I was coming. It was an appointment. But yeah, I would go over there and, all right, it's time. I would knock on the door. It's time for your piano lesson. Hi, how are you? And they'd be like, oh, it's you. Like I'm interrupting their day, right? Because they're at home. They're not thinking it's time for music lessons, right? They went to school. Now they're home. They're done with that part of their day. And so every time this wasn't every time, and there were good people, but that's kind of the mentality. So I think this question depends on the student. Now, if you're homeschooling your children and they're used to that kind of thing and they're used to that schedule, then lessons at home might work because you're accustomed to that. But if you're not, it might not. And the same thing goes for teachers who teach out of their home. I don't think I could ever do that, number one, because I have a son and he likes to play video games. And when they play the video games, it's like, no, I died, or something like that, right? And you say, please be quiet. It's time to be quiet. And, if I was teaching a lesson, that would not work. So I think you need to be careful with that too. There are a lot of distractions in the home. And a lot of the home concept of taking lessons is, let's face it, it's convenient, right? It's a convenience thing. There are many professional teachers that have been doing this for years, and they're very good at what they do. Out of their house, they have a professional studio that's set aside. Maybe it's even detached from their house. So there's no distractions there, but it is a low bar of entry for hobbyists. Because, hey, all right, now I'm a piano teacher. I have a keyboard, and come on over to my house and we'll learn some tunes. Well, okay. You just have to consider, ask questions. What is your education level? How are you trained? These kinds of things.
Getting
right?
out of the house makes it an experience, and I'd say certainly a quality experience in that we offer certain amenities as well that I don't think that you're typically going to get in an in-home setting.
Right.
One of the things that I see often is that, as a child, you might not always want your parent in the lesson with you. You might learn better independent of them, be less conscious, of your decisions, of your actions. For example, as a vocalist, it's odd that I find myself maybe more self-aware and nervous around the people that I'm closest to because I'm just kind of hyper-aware of how they're going to perceive me. I think the same can be said, in a practice setting with, musicians on the piano, on the guitar. Sometimes they need the space to be able to, develop their best decisions. And here we have, all of the cameras, all of the, safety features that you might not necessarily get. In an in-home setting. So that way, parents, have the freedom to give their children the space that they need while also maintaining that eye on them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely an important consideration, and meeting other instrumentalists too, and other families that share common goals and interests is also a wonderful part of being at the academy, right, where you can make those connections. Let's talk about practicing outside of music class. Do we have to practice? Is that important, Bethany?
We should.
Yeah, that's the golden question, right? So as a parent or as a student, you largely determine your path here, okay? So if you want to come in and chat with the teacher on their experience and learn in that way and get some basic goals and recommendations, that's fine. We will help you in any way that we can, but ultimately, you have to put in the work. If you want to do X, you have to do the work to get there. And we can't practice for you, in other words. So you have to want to do it. And what our teachers are great at here is motivating you to want to practice. So we're going to show you all the things that you're interested in and learning and help you get to where you want to be and make it inspiring enough to want to be able to do that. And Also, what I would say is, as a parent, if you have a young child and you think they're just going to practice on their own every day, like clockwork, good luck. I have, as I mentioned, 4 children. That doesn't happen, okay? Well, maybe one. I should say maybe one. But even then, does he practice what he's supposed to practice? That's the other thing. Even if they go and practice the piano or whatever instrument, are they working on what they're supposed to be working on? Like, are they drilling themselves and repeating the problem sections? Probably not on their own. So you as a parent have to help them with that. Read the teacher's notes in the assignment, the weekly assignment log, to help them guide. And if you are lucky enough to have a student that does all those things on their own, that's wonderful. Congratulations. That is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, they're going to feel a sense of gratification from practicing the things that they already know how to do, which is great, and we want to foster that, but at the same time, it's important to get past, the trouble points in order to get to the next level and be able to accomplish, their long-term goals. And I think our theory classes are really helpful in bridging that gap as well, because sometimes parents don't know how to help their children at home. They're not necessarily equipped with the tools to be able to guide them. And our free enrichment classes, where we cover topics like music theory, like songwriting and composition, do help the kids, be able to bring in their own pieces and say, this is what I'm working on, and this is what I'm trying to accomplish at home, but I've been struggling with it. Maybe my mom or dad has been struggling with it. Can you give me guidance as well? Right,
yeah, lots of extra classes here as well to help with those between the lesson kinds of things. It's a great point. And then I would also add that rewards, so a reward system with, especially if it's a child, or, we do it with our adult students too, but we have a treasure chest here where they get so many tickets, and congratulations, you've reached this level. Go treasure hunt in the treasure chest. But you can also have your own personal reward system with your children. We're going to get ice cream today. You got a superior in your lesson. So you just work that out, or stickers or something, whatever it is. And the other thing is making it interesting. And that's something that we stress to all of our teachers here. It has to be fun, especially at a young age, or they're not going to want to do it. There are a few children that would, because they're programmed that certain way. They have that certain special gift, right? But if it's not fun, it's not fun. And all of our teachers try to inspire and motivate our students, mostly through repertoire. So what kinds of songs do they want to learn? What are they interested in? We talked about video game music earlier. So that's definitely a staple here for a lot of kids. Okay. And then finally, let's talk about materials, teaching materials. What do we use here?
Yeah, so we typically like to bring in some type of an accredited, method book, theory book, in addition to, supplementing with what the child is interested in, just because that way we can ensure that they are learning the key need-to-know concepts in order to, succeed in the song that they hear from the radio that they want to be able to play at the recital and things like that. So it's usually, a kind of a combination of both, and then your child should also expect to have some type of an assignment book from their teacher that they are, communicating in, this is what I want you to work on at home.
Written goals are huge.
Goals and expectations.
Yes, right. If you have a teacher that just gives you verbal, do this for next week, there's nothing written down, we don't find that's very effective. Because number one, they're not going to remember it. Number two, the parent isn't going to know what they're supposed to be doing. For adult students, it can work. A lot of our adults are comfortable with that, but otherwise, written goals are the way to go. And Bethany mentioned the method books, having a game plan of organization with steps and procedures to get from here to here each week is very important, in addition to the fun music.
Yeah, it helps make the learning process digestible.
Right.
Bite-sized chunks.
Right. So that concludes our little talk today on getting started in music lessons. I hope you found it informative. Bethany, did you find it informative?
Yes.
Okay.
Informative and fun.
Informative and fun, just like lessons, right? So we will see you next time. Thanks for watching and take care.
Thanks, guys.